Bad people are going to do bad things. We're going to take every step humanly possible, use every piece of technology that comes our way.
We don't need to just accept the fact that active shootings happen in our schools and businesses. Let's do things that prevent the weaknesses in the past that caused the success of the aggressor shooter.
Kids all across the country are headed back into school buildings and classrooms. And the question on every parent, teacher, and student's mind, are we safe? These couple of months following the Uvalde school shooting, school districts are hard at work rethinking safety. Today on Mom Squad, we delve deeper into how schools need to think and act to keep our kids safe. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on Mom Squad, where we talk all things parenting. I'm Maureen Kyle. And today we are tapping into an issue that's been on our minds ever since the last days of school. That's school safety. The tragedy in Uvalde, Texas, that claimed 21 lives had us all wondering, is my child's school equipped and prepared in the case of a school shooter? We hope it never happens, but every district has realized they have to be ready in case it does. All across the country, school districts spent the summer working on technology, safety plans, and upgrades. In a few minutes, we are going to talk to nationally renowned safety and security expert Tim Dimmoff about how he advised over a dozen districts. But first, let's take a look at a school just outside of Washington, D.C. that was designed to protect against an active shooter. WUSA's Eric Flack walks us through.
On March 20th, 2018, a 17-year-old student opened fire in the hallway of Great Mills High School in St. Mary's County, killing 16-year-old Jalen Willie and wounding 14-year-old Desmond Burns before turning the gun on himself. Across the Chesapeake, Dorchester County School Safety and Security Coordinator Chris Haig saw the headlines and knew there was no more pretending their rural school community was immune to gun violence.
It really brought it home that these sorts of incidents can happen anywhere. They can happen in the best communities, they can happen in the worst communities, and every community in between.
From Columbine to Sandy Hook and now Uvalde, the threat of an active shooter in a school has led to a wave of new school safety design techniques, nearly all of which were incorporated into the construction of North Dorchester County High School in Hurlock, Maryland.
Has it ever been more difficult from a school perspective to figure out how to keep these kids safe?
Architect Peter Weinbrenner helped lead the project.
I mean, this is the hardest it's ever been. Just trying to balance all of that, sometimes hysteria, with trying to educate students and get them excited about learning and not feel like, they have to duck and roll all the time.
Weinbrenner told us school hardening, which is the industry term for adding layers of security within the design of the school itself, is a delicate balance, weighing the need to protect students against an active shooter threat while not making kids feel like they're learning inside a prison. To do that, Weinbrenner's team wove swipe card entry, ballistically rated office class, and weapons detectors into an otherwise big, bright, and open entryway, and then layered the floor design with classrooms set well back in the building so that teachers and students would have time to react if a shooter ever forced their way inside the school. But in the wake of the Great Mills High School shooting, many North Dorchester parents worried that the open floor plans and abundance of windows could make the kids targets. In fact, Weinbrenner says most new school designs incorporate lots of glass, especially at entrances and exits, so everyone inside can see a threat coming.
For us, we have to explain to them that it's not just that simple that glass is bad. Having all that glass allows for that eyes on the street, see something, say something mentality.
The purpose of this open design is to increase sight lines for staff. All these lockers are built shorter so you can see over top of them. And all these offices have windows so you can see out. And if there is an active threat, you can close the blinds, you get down behind the concrete, and you hide.
Bad people are going to do bad things. We're going to take every step humanly possible, use every piece of technology that comes our way, and we embrace it, and we train and we utilize it, but I can't say that it's going to stop. It'll stop everything.
Have you had to answer the question, is this all necessary?
Yes.
And what do you say?
What I say is if the worst day ever came to Dorchester and we didn't have this, and we looked back and we had the opportunity to have it, how would we respond on that day?
Tim Dimoff, owner of Sachs Consulting and Investigating Services, thanks so much for joining us here today. And I'm really interested in picking your brain, especially about the video that we just saw. Tim, if you don't mind, what is your initial reaction to some of that new design and the safety measures taken, specifically with that new school?
Yeah, I reviewed that video, and I'm also very familiar with those situations, and I've actually visited schools with different types of physical security improvements in schools that obviously were built many years ago. My reaction to the video is they went back and looked at all the active shootings in different scenarios, and they also became familiar with what happened, in the last several years dealing with active shooter in the schools. And they did a very smart and important thing. They said, what can we do to physically change our school, our new school? What can we do physically that can assist law enforcement, school administrators, teachers, and students to have a higher level of survival, and also to potentially discourage anybody, including students, who might want to come into that school with a weapon. And they put that together and they designed that school specifically with those goals in mind. I think they came up with some remarkable couple things that stand out. The low lockers, where you can actually see over the lockers, was a great idea. And that gives everybody in that school the ability to see much further away what's happening. Is it getting closer to me? Can I, from where I'm standing, can I get out and exit the school? Or do I need to lock down into a classroom or a safe room? So that one change was significant. The other thing that comes to mind is there was discussion about all the glass. Why would you have all this glass around the school, the outside walls? Doesn't that give the shooter, the aggressor, an advantage? And at first thought, you would think, yeah, it does, but it really doesn't, because what it does is it allows, once again, everybody inside and outside. It allows police that are responding, teachers, administrators that are trying to help and direct. It helps everybody see everything of what's going on, and once again, from a much further distance. So those two things really stood out in my mind when I reviewed that video.
The glass, that was one of my biggest questions too, because it, like you said, it kind of feels counterintuitive to make a lot of glass head to toe. Even they showed the principal's office has all glass. Does it need to be a special type of glass? Because my thought is, if a shooter is coming through, they can possibly shoot that out. But if it's a special type of glass, is it bulletproof?
Well, depending on the caliber of the weapon, it could be to some degree, but in most cases, it won't stop a bullet from going through. But the other thing that they can do with that glass is put ballistic window film on it, which you would never know was on there. And the ballistic window film has a very strong adhesive to it. And the key to the ballistic window film is not necessarily stopping bullets from going through. What it does is it prevents the glass from shattering and breaking down to allow a shooter or an aggressor to enter through the window. If you look back, we studied over 600 active shooter incidences here at Sachs Consulting, and we've compiled some of the most intense and detailed research across the country on the private side. And we found out, along with federal studies, that many aggressors shoot windows or glass out, and that's how they get into the building if the doors are locked, windows are locked, if there's other type of prevention. So a simple technique of putting ballistic window film on all that glass can make that glass much more of a fortification, but still allow the ability to see and open up your avenues for prevention and escape. And the thing about ballistic window film, it's very affordable. It's not expensive. So once again, a lot of window film can be put on with a considerable good amount of money, and it doesn't require a lot of money, and you get an extra strong layer of defense.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about layers because they brought up that term school hardening. And I think after Uvalde, every parent out there was thinking, okay, how many steps of safety are between the outside world and my student inside my school? What is this concept of school hardening? And is this something that a lot of districts are looking at?
School hardening is a giant focus right now. And basically, what they're referring to is we don't need to just accept the fact that active shootings happen in our schools and businesses. We can look at the past incidences. We can learn a lot from what has happened in these schools in the past. And we can create what they call hardening, meaning let's do things that prevent the weaknesses in the past that caused the success of the aggressor shooter. And let's do something at our schools that doesn't allow that shooter aggressor to be able to easily do what they did in previous incidences. So hardening is simply looking at the past, looking at what the weaknesses were, and eliminating or reducing them in your current location.
Mm-hmm. Now we're talking about new schools here, like we saw, you know, and it's great if a district has the money to build a new school or develop a new school, but all across the country, there are a lot of schools that are about 100 years old, maybe 50 years old, that don't have these structures in place and have literally the old school design. What do you recommend for those districts that are looking at old existing structures and now they need to find new ways to have technology and new design within that school?
Even though their buildings may be 50 to 100 years old, there are definitive things that these old school buildings can be adjusted or converted to that will increase the security and safety and will increase the prevention levels for active shooters. So just because you have an old building doesn't mean you can't do any kind of target hardening. You can. And I know my company, Sachs Consulting, we have gone into several schools that are seriously built years ago, 50 to 100 years ago, and we've been able to increase their level of physical security. And there are numerous things they can do. Example, window film ballistics. You can put window film on old buildings that have old windows and glass doors. You can convert your entrances to being what we call person traps. You can add cameras. You can add intercom systems. You can create lots of different avenues. You can better control the flow of how people get in and out of there. So just because you're an old building doesn't mean you can't upgrade and also do some target hardening.
And Tim, I know you've had a busy summer because a lot of districts called you in to take a look at these situations. So if you can give us some insight, as you were walking in all these different districts, what was their biggest concern? And then what were some of the biggest security pitfalls that you came across?
Well, I think in the old schools, one of the biggest challenges is they were built in an era where anybody and everybody from students, parents, visitors could walk into that building, and they could walk into that building from 15, 20 different doors, and no one questioned it. So one of the big challenges for old buildings for schools is the multitude of entrance and exits that existed. We did one school that had, it was a very large school, but it had 150 doors to get in and out of in their entire campus. They were an old school that added on a north wing, and 15 years later added on a south wing, and they ended up with a lot of doors. So a lot of entrance and exits is a challenge for older buildings. Their windows and the glass they had on first level, that could easily be fixed with window ballistic film. So those are challenges, but those had solutions to them. Other things is the lack of cameras. You need all the old buildings might have obviously a certain amount of cameras, but most of those old buildings need to have an upgrade of adding a lot more cameras and also upgrading the capabilities of those cameras. Any school can utilize a camera system that has a much sharper ability technology wise, and also they have a thing, artificial intelligence, that can be added to these camera systems. And AI, or artificial intelligence, you can actually program those cameras to notify when certain things happen, such as when a person is in a hallway and they're upright, and then they are no longer upright and they're horizontal, laying on the floor. Those cameras can say, basically, here's a notification of a person who's down on the ground. And that's the kind of intelligence that these cameras can have that can do it. Also, these old schools, they can have gun detection artificial intelligence on them, as you saw in the video, and they can detect a weapon on a person, and cameras can screen and detect students coming in every day for weapons. And you can change your guidelines to backpacks that are clear, that can be seen through. You can add metal detectors. So whether you're an old school or a new school physically, there are lots of target hardening availability today currently.
Yeah. Are these big ticket items? Because I'm just thinking in terms of, administrators, superintendents, cities that are maybe a little cash strapped, and they're looking at these upgrades thinking, I don't know if we have the money for this. Are these big ticket, pricey upgrades, or are there ones that are more affordable?
In the last 5 years, the pricing of the technology that I talked about has come down in price and not gone up. Some things are not expensive and can readily be done and improve your level of security. Other things can get, to a certain degree, costly in the long run. But once again, when we go in, we talk to schools about target hardening, and let's put a short-term and a long-term list together. Let's quantify it, and let's put it in an order of addressing it, and let's budget it out over 2, 3, 4 years. And yeah, I know people want everything now, but a game plan that's put together that budgets stuff out that starts today, this year, and every year you improve, is a really solid way for the schools to improve their security. And of course, levies are passed. The other thing is, a lot of money is available through federal and state grants for security for schools. There is a lot of grants available for specifically schools to improve their security. This is not a time to say we can't access money. It's out there. Yes, you have to work for it. You have to do things, but it's there. And we're currently seeing some money recently here being released in the state of Ohio for security purposes, and multitude of school districts have just recently applied for these grants, and they're using it to improve exactly the areas that I discussed with you here today.
You know, when something like a school shooting happens, everybody, but especially parents, start to feel helpless. Like, what can I do? You know, the schools are within arm's reach, but is there anything that parents and families can do to help prepare or learn about safety? Or do we get clear backpacks? What can families do at home?
Well, a couple things. First, sit down with your child or your children, talk to them about active shooter, aggressive behavior, and talk to them about, do they have an understanding of what they're supposed to do? If you ask a young child what they're supposed to do if there's a fire and they hear a bell or alarm in their school, it is just ironic that they know exactly what to do, where to go, and how to respond. So we need to make sure in an active shooter situation that they do know the same type of protocol. What are they supposed to do? If the child doesn't know, then the parent needs to let the teacher and or the administration know, hey, my child doesn't understand or know what to do when these situation comes up. So we really need to do one-on-one with our children. Secondly, we need to let the school leadership know that you as a parent support any format that helps improve the safety and security of the school and all of its occupants, and let them know you strongly stand behind them. And with that kind of support, school leadership, superintendents, principals can move forward and request and get monetary funds in different ways. And also, parents can help spread the word when levies are needed for school safety and security. So you can be proactive, is the bottom line, and don't take a back seat. Ask questions, make sure your school is on top of their game.
Yeah. And finally, I guess, because you and I have talked about it before, and the story from WUSA mentioned, see something, say something. Is the world getting better at say something, say something? Are we noticing what type of red flags lead to somebody who might go off? Or is that something we still need to fine tune, that we really need to pay attention to?
See something, say something is the most powerful tool we have in this country for preventing all crime, whether it's in schools, in private, in public. See something, say something. Everybody in this country has a pair of eyes and ears, and if we could corral all that on a regular basis, and all we need is a phone call made to a school principal, a superintendent's office, to a police department. We have solved and prevented more different types of crime from see something, say something. And today we have anonymous tip lines, 800 numbers. You can call police, schools, whatever, and you can get confidentiality. So in the past, maybe people hesitated to call because they didn't want anyone to know it was them that is the one that provided that information. Today, see something, say something can be 100% kept confidential, and that has really helped get more information and has done more good than any other prevention tool that exists.
All right, Tim, this is wonderful. Thank you so much for all of that insight. It does. It makes me feel better that there is this type of technology going into schools and what parents can do. It was really insightful.
Well, the technology and the communication now that we have and bringing this to the surface is super important. And I will say that in spite of the fact that we've had a lot of shootings and aggression behavior, one thing does exist. The number of casualties per incident across the board, there are exceptions, but the average number of casualties, injuries, and death has gone down per incident compared to 5 to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So we are doing a better job, but there's significant room that we need to do an even better job. And your video shows a very proactive way to reduce the risks involved with active shooters in our schools.
Yeah, it's scary to think about, but it's good to know that we're learning from it and hopefully more schools are safe. A special thanks to Tim Demoff, owner and head of Sachs Consulting and Investigative Services, for that closer look at what our schools will be doing as we move toward a safer future. Well, next week on Mom Squad, our Back to School series continues. We are talking about ADHD. This is the time of year that kids are back in front of teachers and their attention is tested. We talked to one of the country's leading experts about what is typical behavior and what has the markings of ADHD. That's next week on Mom Squad. Thanks again for tuning in.